All right, good afternoon, everybody. This is Dave Peters. I'm the program manager in the GSA Enterprise Mobility Program Office. We are here this afternoon to talk about the SIN 132.53 enhancement, that is the refresh that many of you received the notice of last week that was posted on the Enterprise Mobility Interact site, and how we're positioning this as the new FSSI, or as you may have known, the Federal Strategic Sourcing Initiative Wireless Program. Before we go ahead and we jump into the content, I'd like to introduce my fellow speakers today. You heard Lisa Chapman. She's the contracting officer for SIN 132.53. We're also joined by Sade Boyd, who is one of Lisa's teammates and one of our programmatic peers, and is the contract specialist for the Mobility SIN 132.53. On slide 3, you'll see in today's agenda, what we want to do is we want to give you a little bit of background. Let's discuss the market factors that you should be well aware of participating in this marketplace. It really drove us to this decision and our attempt to better serve the federal government and how it buys mobility. We'll talk about the benefits of this approach, the benefits of this change, this transformation, and how it'll better enable not only to buy mobility, but to implement it, to manage it, and take a more enterprise perspective, as is the mandate in IT acquisition today. We'll talk about the new subcategories that you probably saw in the refresh. We'll talk about the process for refreshing and achieving this award of the new refresh timeline. And we'll also wrap up by talking about the RFQ Generator tool, which is going to be a strategic asset in terms of how agencies use this refresh SIN, and how they use it as an enabler to buy, implement, and manage mobility. So continuing on slide 4, really this SIN refresh reflects many of the strategic goals related to IT modernization that you heard about, and also category management, a strategy in GSA that's been around now for multiple years. It really has two components. The primary goal is customer-based. We need to continue to evolve the market, that is the mobility market, to evolve in a manner that reflects how agency customers want to buy and manage mobility. As you may have seen in OMB's Memo 16-20 and other guidance, there are standardized approaches that must be used contractually and otherwise for agencies to buy, implement, and manage their mobile assets, particularly service plans and devices. What we want to do in implementing some of this standardization and simplification is give agencies options within that framework of how they can buy in an enterprise manner. Every year, mobility becomes a stronger piece, a more visible piece, a more active piece of how the federal IT infrastructure is used. There was a statistic published at one of the mobile summits earlier this year that over 50% of the access to federal IT systems is through mobile devices. Now that's a combination of both consumer and employee access, but it still reflects where the market's going and how we must support our stakeholders in how they buy and manage. We must do that together as a marketplace, and our intent with this refresh was with the agencies in mind, but I think there's tremendous benefit for the participating contracting firms as well on SIN 132.53. And that really brings us to the final really chunk of the primary goal of customer-based is implementing standardized reporting approaches that minimize the level of effort that an individual agency must undertake to meet IDC and other reporting requirements related to mobility. We're confident that this will also have tremendous benefits for our industry partners as well. We know that when agencies get those requests, whenever they get those management aspects, they immediately turn to a lot of their industry partners and say, can you get me this? Can you help me with this? How can we get information A, B, and C to meet this data call? So the standardization and simplification that are outlined in the refresh SIN should help you meet these goals, should help the market as a whole meet these goals and drive efficiencies that will enable increased technology adoption and many of the other aspects in the other subcategories beyond just carrier service plans and devices. The second goal associated with this is really just continued government-wide mobile portfolio management. This should benefit government and industry alike. There's no need for another round of FSSI PPAs when you already have Schedule 70, when you already have EIS, and when you already have Navy Spiral 3. We can complete this SIN refresh process in 60 to 90 days, and that's significantly less time than the 9 months that would be required to go through the whole BPA process in a manner that reflects the current approach to how agency customers buy, implement, and manage telecom, manage mobility, that is. I'll stop right there before we continue. Any questions or thoughts? Okay, let's continue in slide 4. As I mentioned, we want to expand the definition of wireless services. To date, until the refresh, wireless services on SIN 13253 primarily meant service plans and devices and complementary and some level of complementary services. With the definition of the 11 categories, this will make it easier for agencies to identify what they're trying to buy. It'll give them the option then to also buy whether it's MDM, whether it's TEMS, whether it's other life cycle management, whether it's Internet of Things. They'll have the option to buy this all under one SIN contract, as opposed to wondering about multiple SINs and multiple other contracts as well. This will make it more one-stop shopping for agencies and make it easier to buy in an enterprise manner, whether they're buying on an individual subcategory basis or, as we expect, an increased buying through multiple subcategories. We think this will drive tremendous value increase for customers in how they buy and how they manage. Continuing then with slide 5. We're addressing the government's growing need for advanced mobile solutions, whether it's Internet of Things, whether it's increased management tools to manage the supply chain of devices. We want to give our agencies increased options of what they can buy and how they can quickly identify those providers which are able to provide it. What we want to do is we want to build on the success of the FSSI program. FSSI was one of the first IT contracts to receive best-in-class certification. With this approach, with this increased information attainment of the refresh SIN 13253, we'll be able to meet the best-in-class certification. And really, that's good for all parties involved in the market, in the federal mobility marketplace. For agencies, they get to indicate that their increased buy is under a best-in-class contract. For industry participants, they get to message that they're a member of a best-in-class contract as well. And so there's really benefits to all in terms of this approach. Without the refresh SIN, without the increased data, without the increased definitions associated with the refresh SIN, it would be much more difficult to get this BIC status, and therefore would be a less defined marketplace, and there would be less value in being on the SIN than with it. Continuing into slide 6, we talked about the different subcategories. We talked about 11 in total. What we expect is that all participants will self-identify and propose one or more subcategories that they'd like to participate in this marketplace. We'll talk about the information requirements associated with that self-identification a little bit later in the presentation. But the subcategories we're talking about are wireless carrier services. These are generally the service plans that you think about either on an enterprise business or an individual user, that is voice and data plans that are very commonplace across government today. Mobile communications providers participating in this subcategory can be CONUS and OCONUS. The second subcategory is mobile hardware and infrastructure, and this includes complementary infrastructure equipment that enhances the service plans and devices. It may be endpoints, it may be things like DAS, it may be repeaters. It can be equipment used to integrate the mobile footprint into the enterprise network as well. Mobility as a service is the third subcategory, and that's really referring to an area or a subsegment that we expect to grow in the future. We view that as a subscription-based mobile endpoint management suite. So if under FSSI there were device, second and third generation, typically device requirements. If an agency had a need, whether it was mission specific or business process specific, where they needed an enhanced or more contemporary device, they could procure that device as a service through this subcategory And that would be an option for both contractors, for industry, and agencies to buy non-standard or more premium type devices as a service through this program. The fourth category is enterprise mobility management. That includes things like MDM, mobile application management. It's really a broad set of tools, software, and services for managing the enterprise mobility space. Mobile backend as a service is application development and delivery comprised of platform tools, services, and libraries to develop, integrate, test, and publish mobile applications, primarily to cloud type environments. Continuing then with the final subcategory 6 through 11, I think TEMS is pretty self-explanatory and is a common way that agencies use today to make sure that they're managing what they're buying, how much they're paying, how much they're using. And that, of course, is telecommunications expense management services. Mobile application vetting includes the processes and software and tools required to test, validate, and verify mobile apps. Mobile protection is really more of a security-oriented solution that monitors the mobile endpoint and can build on an MDM, go beyond an MDM type management functionality, and really gets to those providers that want to be more security-oriented. Mobile identity management is a solution that we don't see significantly in place today, but we do expect to grow as the endpoint device and service grow beyond the traditional voice and data services. And as we see mobile devices grow to take the place of ID cards and other identity and credential management pieces. The Internet of Things, that is, we expect that many of the providers in this market will grow to provide, whether it's fleet management, whether it's remote healthcare management, education, smart city, smart grid type applications. We expect that segment to grow within this marketplace, and we expect that agencies may want to procure it through the refresh SIN and from the providers that are on it today and that may be on it in the future. And then finally, the last subcategory is really a catch-all for anything that may or may not be listed in the first 10. Some examples could include some paging, short-term rental disposal of endpoint devices, and even satellite-only communication providers. We expect that many contractors will participate in more than one. We see, when we look at the portfolio of industry partners that we have today, we look at what agencies are buying. We definitely expect many will support more than one category. So where does this fit in the overall IT Schedule 70 portfolio? As you can see on slide 8, Schedule 70 is the largest IT procurement vehicle in government. There's over $15 billion purchased today in procurements annually, over $7.5 million in products and services. Many of you are many of the over 4,600 contractors, of which more than 80% are small businesses. And it's a popular vehicle that agencies like to use because of the ease of use and because of the access to a broad range of contractors. I'll pause here. I'm going to turn it over to Lisa as we talk about the relevant project experience highlights on slide 9. And then I'll also add into Lisa's comments with regards to some of the reporting requirements. Lisa?
Hello, this is Sade. I'll actually speak to the requirements for the new SIN. Our vendors are required to submit relevant project experience. The experience must relate to the SIN and the desired subcategory. One project can be provided as experience for multiple subcategories. Most vendors currently under SIN 13253 will be placed under subcategory 11, which is other mobile services. And if a vendor is interested in adding the new subcategories, please contact your contracting officer to begin the modification process. You will need to provide the relevant project experience and your price proposal template for consideration. The technical SME will review the proposed offerings and identify the applicable subcategory. A modification checklist will also be available on the Wireless Mobility SIN 13253 website.
Now talk a little bit about the reporting requirements. The unique reporting requirements are limited to those participants that want to participate in the first subcategory, that is the carrier service plans and devices. The intent of this is so that we may continue to gather the data required to maintain best-in-class certification, which is in the best case situation for all participants, agencies, GSA, and industry. This will allow us to retain data in terms of what is bought, how much is bought, what is paid. What I will tell you is right now is what we've told agencies since we started FSSI more than 5 years ago. The intent of this data collection is not to drive pricing, not to drive purchasing on a price-specific basis. We recognize that purchases today in the first subcategory are driven by 3 different variables, often a combination of them. Yes, price is one, but we recognize that coverage quality is a significant factor. Device selection is also a factor as well. In fact, we generally recommend, as agencies are evaluating theirs, we continue to recommend a best value approach because of that coverage quality and because of the device, to a secondarily aspect, because of the device components. We're not trying to make this purely a cheapest, lowest price, technically acceptable play. But we do think it's important to all parties involved, agencies, industry alike, that we maintain the BIC certification. We recognize that other markets, whether it's security related, whether in terms of vulnerability, whether it's mobile device management, whether it's TEMS, there's not as much standardization, simplification that can be implemented. And therefore, there is no need to implement those reporting requirements at this time with that. The information requested is a continuation of the ABSR fields under the wireless FSSI that are today. So to many of those participants on the FSSI, I should say to all the participants on the FSSI, they really should be of no surprise to you because they're exactly the same as they are today. With that, we'll continue to, in terms of the timeline, we've published the significant changes on the Interact site. Today is the webinar, is the second item in the table on slide 10. And our intent is that over the winter we'll receive your request for updates in terms of where you want to be placed in one or more subcategories. We'll evaluate those, and then our contracting team, led by Lisa and Sade today, will make those subsequent awards. Our intent is not to police or to create barriers to industry. Our intent is to streamline the process so that agencies can more quickly identify providers for the various subcategories and thus more quickly make buys, make more value-based buying decisions in terms of their mobile enterprise components. With that, I wanted to cover one more thing that really complements the standardization simplification theme that you've heard today, and that really represent the strategic advancement of this SIN, and that is the RFQ Generator tool. What this is a web-based tool that is in controlled introduction mode right now. We're looking to move it forward towards a broader controlled release in the next couple weeks. I'm sorry, was there a question? Okay.
Hi, Dave.
Continue.
This is Lisa. Before we move forward, I would
Sure.
like to request all participants to type any questions you have in the chat box to the right of your screen. And we will have a Q&A session following the presentation.
Okay. Cool.
Thank you.
And so with this upcoming release, what we're calling the Phase 3 release of the RFQ Generator, this allows agencies to buy, implement, and manage wireless carrier services and devices in a standardized manner. So that much like in FSSI, if an agency came out and said, hey, I need to buy 5,000 service plans and I need 3,000 smartphones with these voice and data plans, I need 2,000 data-only devices, and maybe 500 voice-only units of this service plan, they did it very quickly. They could do it within a couple pages. The RFQ Generator is an online web-based tool which allows agencies to quickly develop a standardized and simplified solicitation to do that. So we want to perpetuate that. We recognize that one of the benefits to industry and agencies alike was that solicitation responses could be turned around rather quickly, in many cases under 3 or 4 days, even when multiple thousand units were involved. This RFQ Generator, combined with the standardization and simplification components of the SIN, will allow that. It will allow industry to respond in a much more abbreviated time. It will allow agencies to receive these quotations, evaluate them, and then make an award in a much shorter time as well. So we really view this tool as a win-win for all as well. With that, I think we're ready for the Q&A that Lisa referenced. I will point out that these slides will be available on the Interact page as well, in case anyone was wondering.
Hi, Dave. While we're waiting on questions to come in, would you like to discuss next steps?
Yeah, so let's go ahead and do that. So our goal is that the SIN will be established and finalized by the end of the calendar year 2018. There's no limit in terms of the awardees on either a category basis or an overall SIN basis. When the wireless mobility services SIN is in place, vendors may submit requests to add the SIN as well. You'll notice the name of it. We're now calling it the Wireless Mobility Services SIN. We want to capture that enterprise perspective that agencies now want to buy under. They've received regulatory guidance, whether it's VTAR. They've received guidance from administrative guidance, whether it's regarding IT modernization, or whether, and even, like as I referenced, Mobile Memo 16-20 gave specific guidance on the purchase of mobility. This is consistent with those strategies, with those requirements, with those compliance measures, and is really a complement to, we view it as an opportunity to streamline and create efficiency in the federal mobility marketplace. We'll continue to make updates on GSA Interact IT Schedule 70, so that's pretty much our plan for the next 45 days. Lisa, anything I left out or could have highlighted better?
Nope, I think that was great. I would like to add, moving on to the next slide for tips to assist. We do encourage you to submit broad offerings. We do understand that you will be submitting proposing services in response to requirements, but just keep in mind that you have several agencies reviewing your offerings on GSA Library and Advantage. So you want to make sure that you pre-position yourself for that. And we are working to reach out to all contracting officers and specialists across Schedule 70. And so there will be a migration process that will take place in the near future. And we will be working with them to expedite modifications, especially those that are submitted for pending task orders. So you may, if you contact your CO now, they may not have a lot of information to share with you, but please know that in the very near future, they will have instructions on how to handle your modifications for this program. And to expedite modifications, we do request that you submit any ULAs and user license agreements ahead of any official modification submissions in the system. We can kind of work outside of the system to get those reviewed by our legal ASAP. And I believe that is it. So I don't see any questions as of yet. and that's kind of rare. So I'm wondering if we're having technical difficulties, because I would expect we'd have at least one question. But since we don't, Dave, is there anything else we should mention? Or
Lisa,
Kelly?
hey, Lisa.
I
There are
go ahead.
questions. There are questions
okay.
in the box. You've just got to change the view to show questions if you stop sharing. Or would you like me to read them out loud?
Yes, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay, we have a question about sending copies of the presentation to attendees directly. Can that be done?
Yes, that can be done. I can send that out by close of business today.
Okay. There was another question about the December 6th award date that has been referenced. What is that?
From the award date. I'm assuming that's the refresh.
That might be, it doesn't look like the person that asked the question is dialed in. If you are and you've got some clarifying information, please speak up.
Do you know, if you can point out which slide that came from.
Let's see, I'm not seeing anything else come in.
But I can share with you that the program or this initiative has been approved and will go in the, I don't think it's going to be the next refresh because I believe we have one coming out. I believe it's refresh 51 within the next few weeks. So we expect this update to go out in refresh 52, which will be in January of 2019.
Okay, the next question. Those that already have this SIN do not need to do anything. Is that correct? We will just be added under subcategory 11.
That is correct. And if you are interested in being considered for additional subcategories, that's the only reason you'll need to modify the contract. And as Sade mentioned, to be considered for subcategories 1 through 10, if you do not currently have that subcategory, and we can let you know offline which subcategories you'll fall under currently based on your offerings. But if you would like to be considered for an additional subcategory, you will then get with your CO and submit a modification. And project experience can be considered for multiple subcategories.
Okay, great. The next question I see asks, what supporting documentation would be acceptable if a product has not been sold previously?
So because this is the wireless SIN, we anticipate the offerings to be specific to wireless services.
I think that's something we'd have to talk about as a group and obviously get your approval, get the contracting officer approval before we hit send. I think we would be, I think that there's either whether things were sold or similarly done in commercial markets or capabilities. I mean, I would be interested, but clearly, the CO makes the final decision on whether or not that's approved. But I think that if there's an example of that where you've got a new Internet of Things capability or a mobile device management or a vulnerability detection and you want to register under those subcategories, we'd love to better understand your capability and would welcome that discussion. This is about accelerating the identification of mobile capabilities to agencies. We are surely not trying to block any type of capability from agencies. So if you've got such a capability, perhaps it's doesn't have 3 projects to support it. Let us know what it is, and we want to work with you within the bounds of the FAR. Absolutely.
Okay, well, that is the last question that I see. If someone else is typing, please get that in so we can ask the team here.
Well, and we can take, if someone's got a question, they can reach out to us afterwards. So we look forward to hearing from you. We look forward to partnering in the marketplace. We look forward to partnering with you to make mobility an enabler, a better service to our tax-paying citizens. So we thank you for your time today. And with that, I think we can wrap. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.